The year was 2009, and the air at Radio City Music Hall buzzed with anticipation. The MTV Video Music Awards were in full swing, a glittering spectacle of pop culture where stars strutted the red carpet, cameras flashed, and the music industry's elite gathered to celebrate. Taylor Swift, a 19-year-old country pop prodigy with a cascade of blonde curls and a heart full of dreams, sat in the audience, her eyes wide with the thrill of her first major VMA nomination. Her song, "You Belong With Me," had captured hearts with its relatable lyrics and catchy melody, earning her a nod for Best Female Video. Across the room, Kanye West, the brash, boundary-pushing hip-hop icon, lounged in his seat, his presence magnetic, his reputation as a provocateur already cemented. The night felt electric, a collision of egos and artistry. Taylor, still a newcomer in the pop world, was the underdog, her wholesome image a stark contrast to the glitz of the VMAs. Kanye, on the other hand, was a titan. His album Late Registration had redefined rap, and his outspokenness made him a lightning rod for controversy. Their paths had barely crossed before, but fate was about to intertwine their stories in a way neither could have predicted. When the category for Best Female Video arrived, the tension in the room was palpable. The nominees flashed across the screen: Beyoncé's Single Ladies, Lady Gaga's Poker Face, and Taylor's You Belong With Me, among others. The presenter, a grinning MTV host, tore open the envelope. And the winner is Taylor Swift. The crowd erupted. Taylor's face lit up with disbelief, her hands flying to her mouth as she stood, her sparkly silver dress catching the stage lights. She made her way to the stage, her heart pounding, ready to deliver her first ever VMA acceptance speech. As Taylor clutched the Moonman trophy, her voice trembled with gratitude. "I never thought I'd be standing here," she began, her southern twang soft but clear. The audience cheered, charmed by her earnestness. But before she could finish her thought, a figure emerged from the crowd, striding onto the stage with purpose. Kanye West, in a black leather jacket and sunglasses, snatched the microphone from Taylor's hand. The room fell silent, a collective gasp rippling through the audience. "Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'ma let you finish," Kanye said, his voice booming through the speakers. "But Beyoncé had one of the best videos of all time." He gestured emphatically, his words slicing through the air. Taylor stood frozen, her smile fading, the trophy heavy in her hands. The cameras panned to Beyoncé, who looked stunned, her eyes wide with discomfort. The audience booed, a mix of shock and outrage, as Kanye handed the mic back and sauntered off stage, leaving Taylor alone in the spotlight. The moment was seismic. Taylor, visibly shaken, tried to continue her speech, but the words caught in her throat. She thanked her fans, her voice barely above a whisper, and hurried off stage. Backstage, her team enveloped her, offering hugs and reassurances, but the damage was done. The internet exploded. Twitter, still a nascent platform, lit up with hashtags. Hashtag Kanye interrupts, hashtag poor Taylor. Blogs churned out think pieces, and talk shows replayed the clip endlessly. Kanye's outburst was branded a scandal, a brazen act of disrespect toward a young star on her big night. Taylor, though humiliated, handled it with grace. In interviews that followed, she spoke softly, admitting the moment stung but refusing to lash out. "I don't know him, and I don't want to start anything," she told reporters, her eyes betraying a flicker of hurt. Her fans rallied around her, painting her as the wronged heroine, a narrative that would shape her public image for years. Kanye, meanwhile, faced a firestorm. Critics called him arrogant, a bully. He issued a half-hearted apology on his blog, claiming he meant no harm, but the backlash was relentless. Even President Obama weighed in, calling Kanye a jackass in an off-the-record comment that quickly leaked. Behind the scenes, the incident gnawed at both stars. For Taylor, it was a crash course in the harsh realities of fame, a reminder that success came with vulnerability. She poured her feelings into her music, her next album already taking shape in her mind. For Kanye, the moment was a flashpoint, amplifying his defiance. He saw himself as a truth-teller, unafraid to challenge the industry's status quo, even if it cost him. He doubled down, tweeting cryptic defenses of his actions, hinting that the world misunderstood his intentions. The VMA incident wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a cultural moment, a collision of country innocence and hip-hop bravado, of youth and audacity. It set the stage for a saga that would unfold over years, fueled by music, media, and mutual mistrust. Neither Taylor nor Kanye could know it then, but that night in 2009 was just the beginning, a spark that would ignite a feud unlike any other in pop culture history. The dust from the 2009 VMAs hadn't settled, and the music world was still reeling. Taylor Swift, barely out of her teens, had been thrust into a media maelstrom, her VMA moment stolen by Kanye West's interruption. The headline screamed, "Kanye humiliates Taylor. Swift's big night ruined." Paparazzi swarmed her Nashville home, hoping to catch a glimpse of the wounded starlet. Taylor, ever the professional, retreated to her inner circle, her mother Andrea and her team shielding her from the chaos. But inside, the sting lingered. She wasn't just hurt. She was angry, though she'd never admit it publicly. Her diary filled with lyrics, raw and aching, as she processed the betrayal of being upstaged on her night. Kanye, meanwhile, was in a different kind of storm. The backlash was brutal. Late-night hosts mocked him, radio stations pulled his songs, and even his peers distanced themselves. Jay-Z, his mentor, reportedly told him to lay low. Kanye's apology on his blog, a rambling mix of regret and defiance, did little to quell the outrage. He fled to Hawaii, holing up in a studio to escape the noise. There, surrounded by beats and microphones, he wrestled with his demons. He knew he'd crossed a line, but part of him still believed he'd spoken truth. Beyoncé's video was iconic, wasn't it? The world just didn't get it. His frustration fueled his work, the seeds of my beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy taking root. By 2010, the narrative had solidified. Taylor was the victim, Kanye the villain. But Taylor wasn't content to stay the damsel in distress. She channeled her pain into her music, crafting Speak Now, an album that showcased her songwriting prowess. The track, Innocent, debuted at the 2010 VMAs, was a direct response to the Kanye incident. "You're still an innocent," she sang, her voice soft but pointed, a message of forgiveness laced with defiance. The performance was a triumph, earning a standing ovation. Taylor had reclaimed her story, turning humiliation into art. Fans adored her resilience, and her stars soared higher. Kanye, too, was plotting his comeback. In Hawaii, he poured his soul into My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, an album that would redefine his career. Tracks like Runaway were raw, introspective, grappling with his flaws and the public's scorn. At the 2010 VMAs, he didn't attend, but his presence loomed large. Taylor's performance felt like a subtle jab, and Kanye, watching from afar, felt the sting. He tweeted cryptically, "I bleed for my art," hinting at the personal cost of his actions. When the album dropped, it was hailed as a masterpiece, critics marveling at its ambition. Kanye was back, unapologetic and brilliant. The two stars seemed to orbit separate worlds, but the media kept them tethered. Every interview, every awards show, reporters asked Taylor about Kanye, probing for drama. She'd smile tightly, deflecting with grace. "I'm focused on my music." Kanye, less restrained, dropped hints in interviews, suggesting the VMAs were overblown, a misunderstanding. "I'm not the bad guy here," he told Rolling Stone, his tone equal parts defensive and weary. Yet the public wasn't ready to forgive him, not when Taylor's wholesome image shone so brightly against his controversy. Behind closed doors, there were whispers of reconciliation. Beyoncé, caught in the crossfire of Kanye's outburst, reached out to Taylor after the 2009 VMAs, inviting her back on stage to finish her speech. The gesture was heartfelt, and Taylor, gracious as ever, accepted. It was a moment of unity, but it didn't erase the tension with Kanye. Mutual friends in the industry urged them to talk, to bury the hatchet. A brief meeting was arranged at a 2010 industry event, orchestrated by a shared publicist. It was awkward. Kanye mumbled an apology, Taylor nodded politely, but no real peace was made. Both were too stubborn, too shaped by their narratives. The feud simmered quietly, fueled by their art and the public's fascination. Taylor's Speak Now tour sold out arenas, her fanbase, now dubbed the Swifties, a force to be reckoned with. Kanye's Fantasy tour was a spectacle, his defiance electrifying crowds. They were opposites. Taylor, the storyteller of heartbreak and hope. Kanye, the provocateur of chaos and genius. Yet they shared a relentless drive, a need to prove themselves. The VMA incident had scarred them both, but it also lit a fire. As 2011 dawned, their paths seemed destined to cross again, the unresolved tension hanging like a storm cloud over pop culture. The world watched, waiting for the next chapter. Would it be peace or another explosion? Neither Taylor nor Kanye could predict what lay ahead, but one thing was clear. Their story was far from over. By 2012, Taylor Swift and Kanye West were titans in their own right, their paths diverging yet forever linked by that fateful night at the 2009 VMAs. Taylor, now 22, had transformed from country ingenue to global pop sensation. Her album Red was a bold leap, blending country roots with pop anthems, and hits like We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together dominated the charts. Her image was polished yet relatable, her fanbase a legion of Swifties who hung on her every lyric. Kanye, meanwhile, was riding the high of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and pushing boundaries with Yeezus, an experimental album that cemented his reputation as a musical visionary. But the shadow of their feud loomed, a story the media refused to let die. The world saw a glimmer of peace in 2010 when Taylor and Kanye crossed paths at the Met Gala. The encounter, brief and staged for the cameras, was orchestrated by mutual friends desperate to quash the drama. Kanye, in a rare moment of humility, offered a nod and a smile. Taylor, ever gracious, returned it. Paparazzi snapped photos, and headlines screamed, Taylor and Kanye make amends. But behind the smiles, tension simmered. Taylor hadn't forgotten the sting of 2009, and Kanye, though quieter about it, still felt the world had overreacted. The truce was fragile, a performance for the public. As 2013 rolled in, their careers kept them on parallel tracks. Taylor's Red Tour was a spectacle, selling out stadiums worldwide. She was meticulous, pouring her heart into every performance, her lyrics dissecting love and loss with surgical precision. Kanye, on the other hand, was embracing his role as a cultural provocateur. Yeezus was raw, abrasive, and polarizing, a middle finger to the industry's expectations. He was also stepping into new territory, marrying Kim Kardashian in 2014, a union that amplified his celebrity to stratospheric levels. Kim, a reality TV queen with a knack for publicity, became a key player in Kanye's orbit, and her presence would soon complicate the Swift-West saga. The media, ever hungry for drama, kept the feud alive. Every awards show was a chance to speculate. Would Taylor and Kanye clash? Would they speak? At the 2014 Grammys, they were seated rows apart, but cameras caught Taylor glancing at Kanye during his performance with Rihanna and Paul McCartney. Her expression was unreadable. Curiosity, maybe, or caution. Kanye, for his part, seemed oblivious, lost in his art. But the internet spun its own narrative, memes and GIFs dissecting their every move. The public loved the story. Taylor, the wholesome heroine. Kanye, the unpredictable antihero. Then came 2015, a year that seemed to promise reconciliation. At the Grammys, Taylor and Kanye were spotted chatting backstage, their body language relaxed. Taylor, now 25 and prepping her 1989 album, was at the peak of her confidence. She'd reinvented herself as a pop juggernaut, leaving country behind. Kanye, fresh off Yeezus and deep into his fashion ventures, was trying to soften his image. Kim, ever the strategist, encouraged him to mend fences. It's good for your brand, she reportedly told him. The conversation was brief but cordial, and Taylor later told Vanity Fair she was open to moving on. I don't hold grudges, she said, her tone diplomatic but firm. The real test came at the 2015 VMAs. Taylor presented Kanye with the Video Vanguard Award, a moment carefully choreographed by MTV. She took the stage, radiant in a sparkly jumpsuit, and praised Kanye's influence. I'm a fan of his music, his vision, she said, her words measured but sincere. The crowd cheered, sensing a turning point. Kanye, accepting the award, was unusually subdued, thanking Taylor and joking, I'm not going to interrupt this time. The audience laughed, and for a moment, it felt like the feud was buried. But beneath the surface, doubts lingered. Taylor's fans, protective too. The year 2016 was a powder keg, and the uneasy truce between Taylor Swift and Kanye West was about to blow. Taylor, now 26, was riding the wave of her 1989 album, a pop juggernaut that swept the Grammys, including Album of the Year. Her carefully curated image, squad goals, red carpet glamour, and anthems of empowerment made her untouchable. Kanye, meanwhile, was pushing boundaries with his upcoming album, The Life of Pablo. Married to Kim Kardashian, he was a cultural force, blending music, fashion, and controversy. The 2015 VMAs had suggested peace, but the calm was a mirage. In February 2016, Kanye dropped Famous, a track that sent shockwaves through pop culture. The lyric in question was a bombshell. I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex/why. I made that be *TCH famous. The line was a direct jab, referencing the 2009 VMA incident and claiming credit for Taylor's rise. The internet erupted. Fans, critics, and talk shows dissected the lyric, some calling it genius provocation, others crude misogyny. Taylor's camp was livid. She'd spent years rebuilding her narrative, and now Kanye had dragged her back into his orbit with a single verse. Taylor stayed silent at first, letting her team handle the fallout. Her publicist issued a statement. Taylor had not approved the lyric and was blindsided by its release. Kanye, however, insisted otherwise. He took to Twitter, claiming he'd called Taylor to discuss the line and gotten her blessing. "I didn't diss Taylor," he tweeted, his tone defiant. She thought it was funny. The conflicting stories fueled a media frenzy. Was Taylor playing the victim again, or had Kanye betrayed her trust? The truth was murky, but the battle lines were drawn. Enter Kim Kardashian, the wild card. In July 2016, Kim escalated the drama by releasing a partial recording of a phone call between Kanye and Taylor on Snapchat. In the grainy video, Kanye read the lyric, minus the word *TCH, and Taylor seemed to approve, her voice casual. "It's like tongue-in-cheek, you know?" The clip ended abruptly, leaving out any discussion of the controversial word. Kim's caption was a dagger, #Taylor Swift knew. The internet exploded again. Hashtags like #Taylor Swift is a snake trended, and memes painted Taylor as a liar. Her wholesome image took a hit, the first major crack in her armor. Taylor was reeling. She issued a response on Instagram, insisting she'd never approved the full lyric and felt manipulated by the edited clip. "Where is the video of Kanye telling me he was going to call me? That be *TCH in his song," she wrote, her words sharp with frustration. But the damage was done. Public opinion was split. Some saw Taylor as a victim of selective editing, others as a calculating diva caught in a lie. Kanye and Kim, meanwhile, reveled in the chaos. Kim told GQ she'd released the video to set the record straight, while Kanye stayed silent, letting the controversy fuel his album's buzz. The fallout was brutal for Taylor. She retreated from the spotlight, canceling public appearances and going quiet on social media. Friends described her as shaken, betrayed by the industry and the public she'd worked so hard to win over. In private, she poured her anger into her music, the seeds of reputation taking shape. The album, still a year away, would be her darkest yet, a response to the snake emojis and betrayal she felt. Kanye, by contrast, thrived in the chaos. The Life of Pablo was a critical and commercial hit, and his Yeezy brand soared. He saw himself as a truth-teller, unafraid to challenge even the biggest stars. The 2016 Grammys, held just before the famous controversy exploded, had been a missed opportunity for reconciliation. Taylor and Kanye were both there, but they avoided each other, the air thick with unspoken tension. Taylor's speech for Album of the Year was a subtle jab. To all the young women out there, there will be people who try to take credit for your accomplishments. Don't let them. The crowd roared, sensing the shade. Kanye, watching from the audience, smirked but said nothing. By late 2016, the feud was bigger than Taylor and Kanye. It was a cultural phenomenon. It pitted fan bases against each other, sparked debates about gender, power, and truth in the industry, and turned Kim into a central figure. Taylor's Swifties rallied, flooding social media with support, while Kanye's fans hailed him as a rebel. The media, as always, fanned the flames, pitting the pop princess against the hip-hop king. Both stars were wounded, but neither would back down. The stage was set for Taylor's next move, and it would be a game-changer. The year 2017 was a reckoning for Taylor Swift. The fallout from Kanye West's Famous and Kim Kardashian's Snapchat bombshell had left her battered, her golden image tarnished by hashtag Taylor Swift is a snake, trending worldwide. At 27, Taylor was no stranger to scrutiny, but this felt different, personal, vicious, and unrelenting. She vanished from public view, her Instagram silent, her red carpet appearances non-existent. In her Nashville sanctuary, surrounded by her cats and her closest confidants, Taylor plotted her next move. She wasn't just hurt. She was furious, and her response would come in the form of Reputation, an album that would redefine her. Kanye, meanwhile, was riding high. The life of Pablo was a critical darling. His Yeezy fashion line was a cultural juggernaut, and his marriage to Kim Kardashian kept him in the headlines. The Famous controversy had only amplified his mystique as a provocateur. But beneath the bravado, Kanye was stretched thin. His 2016 tour was cut short after a series of erratic rants, and he was hospitalized for exhaustion. The media speculated wildly, but Kanye retreated to focus on family and music, seemingly unbothered by the Swift saga. Yet, in private, he bristled at the narrative that painted him as the sole villain. Taylor's comeback began in August 2017 with a cryptic Instagram post, a glitchy video of a snake's tail. The internet buzzed. Swifties saw it as a reclaiming of the snake label, while skeptics scoffed, expecting more drama. When Reputation dropped in November, it was a sonic and visual reinvention. Gone was the bubbly pop of 1989. This was dark, electronic, and defiant, with tracks like Look What You Made Me Do dripping with venom. The song's video was a masterpiece of shade. Taylor, clad in black, rose from a grave, surrounded by snakes, declaring, "The old Taylor can't come to the phone right now." Why? Oh, 'cause she's dead. Fans and critics read it as a direct clapback at Kanye, Kim, and the media frenzy of 2016. The album was polarizing but undeniable. It debuted at #1, selling 2 million copies worldwide in its first week. The Reputation Stadium Tour, launched in 2018, was a spectacle of defiance, with towering snakes and pyrotechnics. Taylor leaned into her villain era, embracing the narrative while proving her resilience. In interviews, she was coy about Kanye, saying only, "I write about my life, and people can interpret it how they want." But the subtext was clear. She'd taken the snake emoji and turned it into a crown. Kanye, deep in his own world, was working on Ye and Kids See Ghosts. He didn't directly address Reputation, but his tweets hinted at irritation. "I'm an artist, not a tabloid story," he posted, a veiled jab at the media's obsession with the feud. Kim, ever protective, fanned the flames in interviews, insisting the Snapchat video had exposed the truth. The feud was no longer just Taylor versus Kanye. It was Taylor versus the West Kardashian empire, a clash of pop culture titans. The 2018 Grammys offered no reconciliation. Taylor skipped the event, focusing on her tour, while Kanye, nominated for his work with Kid Cudi, attended but kept a low profile. The media, as always, spun narratives of shade and snubs, but both stars seemed weary of the cycle. Taylor's Reputation era was about reclaiming her power, not reigniting old battles. Kanye, grappling with personal struggles, was focused on his art and family. Yet the public wouldn't let go. Every lyric, every interview, was dissected for hidden jabs. By 2019, Taylor was shifting gears. Her next album, Lover, was a return to softer themes, a signal she was ready to move on. But she didn't forget. In a Rolling Stone interview, she spoke candidly about the Famous fallout, calling it a low point. "I felt so alone," she admitted, her voice steady but vulnerable. Kanye, meanwhile, was diving into gospel with Jesus is King, a project that marked a new chapter. He avoided mentioning Taylor, but his reflective lyrics hinted at regret for past chaos. Friends of both stars whispered that a real conversation, one without cameras or publicists, might finally bury the hatchet. But pride, and the weight of a decade-long saga, kept them apart. The feud, though quieter, still simmered. Fans on both sides kept the rivalry alive, trading barbs on Twitter and Instagram. The world waited for the next spark, unsure if it would bring peace or another explosion. Taylor and Kanye, now icons in their own right, were writing their legacies, but their stories remained entwined, a testament to the power of music, ego, and redemption. The 2020s dawned with Taylor Swift and Kanye West as undeniable legends, their feud a relic of pop culture's past, yet a story that refused to fade. Taylor, now in her early 30s, was at the peak of her powers. Her albums Folklore and Evermore, released in 2020, were introspective masterpieces, earning critical acclaim and Grammy wins. She'd re-recorded her early albums to reclaim ownership, a move that cemented her as a business-savvy icon. Kanye, meanwhile, was navigating a turbulent decade. His gospel-infused Jesus is King and the ambitious Donda showcased his genius, but his personal life, marked by his divorce from Kim Kardashian and polarizing public statements, kept him in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. The famous fallout of 2016 felt like a lifetime ago, but its scars lingered. Taylor had transformed the snake narrative into a badge of honor, her reputation era a turning point that proved her resilience. Kanye, though, was less reflective about the past. His focus was on his music, fashion, and spiritual journey, with little room for revisiting old battles. Yet the media and fans kept the feud alive, analyzing every lyric and public appearance for hints of shade. The saga had become a cultural touchstone, a tale of clashing egos and redemption arcs. In 2020, a global pandemic forced the world to pause, and both stars retreated from the spotlight in their own ways. Taylor, holed up in her Los Angeles home, poured her energy into creating her surprise albums, a gift to fans craving solace. Kanye, in Wyoming, worked on Donda, a tribute to his late mother, grappling with personal loss and public scrutiny. Their paths didn't cross, but the internet kept them linked. A viral tweet comparing their Grammy wins sparked debates. Taylor, with 11 awards, versus Kanye, with 22. Fans argued passionately, proving the rivalry still had legs. By 2022, signs of détente emerged. Taylor, promoting her re-recorded Red, Taylor's version, spoke candidly in a Variety interview about moving on. "I don't hold on to anger anymore," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Life's too short." She didn't name Kanye, but the subtext was clear. Kanye, in a rare reflective moment on a podcast, acknowledged the VMA incident as a misstep. "I was young, man, caught up in the moment," he said, his tone softer than usual. "I respect her hustle now." The comments, though brief, sparked headlines. Kanye praises Taylor. Feud over. The 2023 Grammys offered a chance for closure. Both were nominated, Taylor for Midnights, Kanye for Donda 2. They didn't interact, but cameras caught a moment. Taylor, radiant in a midnight blue gown, clapping during Kanye's performance. Kanye, in a rare suit, nodded toward her table during his acceptance speech for Best Rap Album. "To all the artists out there, keep creating," he said, his eyes briefly meeting hers. The gesture was subtle, but fans on X exploded with theories. Was it peace? Respect? Or just a fleeting moment? Behind the scenes, mutual acquaintances urged reconciliation. Jay-Z, a mentor to Kanye and a friend to Taylor, reportedly hosted a low-key dinner in Los Angeles, inviting both. The details were hush-hush, but insiders said it was civil. Awkward handshakes, small talk about music, no mention of 2009 or 2016. It wasn't a grand resolution, but it was a start. Taylor, ever private, didn't share details, but her next album, The Tortured Poets Department, 2024, hinted at closure. The track, Thank You Amy, was rumored to reference Kim, but its tone was more reflective than vengeful, a nod to moving on. Kanye, meanwhile, was rebuilding. His divorce and public struggles had humbled him, and Vultures, his 2024 collaboration with Ty Dolla $ign, showed flashes of his old brilliance. He avoided mentioning Taylor, focusing instead on his kids and faith. Kim, now a media mogul in her own right, stayed out of the fray, her influence on the feud fading. The world had changed, and so had they. Taylor was no longer the wide-eyed teen. Kanye was no longer the reckless provocateur. Both had weathered storms, their legacies secure but hard-earned. By 2025, the feud was less a fire than a faint ember. Taylor's Eras tour was a cultural juggernaut, breaking records and uniting generations of fans. Kanye's Yeezy brand and music kept him relevant, though his focus was quieter, more introspective. The saga that began in 2009 had shaped them both, teaching Taylor resilience and Kanye restraint. Their fans, once bitter rivals, had softened, sharing memes that celebrated both artists' impact. The VMA stage, the famous lyric, the Snapchat video, they were chapters in a story that had defined an era. As Taylor and Kanye moved forward, their feud became a footnote, a reminder of how art, ego, and redemption collide. They never became friends, but they didn't need to. Their music spoke for them, a testament to two visionaries who, despite it all, kept creating.